All right, so one of the most common questions that I'm asked about leadership is what makes a good leader? And I think that boils down to three primary areas. One is proximity, two is accountability, and three is credibility. Now, maybe part of you is thinking, well, I'm not, I'm a stay at home mom, or, I'm just a manager at a Wendy's, or, maybe I'm not even a manager yet. I really think that leadership is anybody who's in front of an audience. So I think that's business leaders. I think that's teachers. I think that's parents. So I think this applies to you. This idea of proximity. So good leaders are they're present. We know that in business, as leaders progress through an organization, they spend less time with their teams, less time with their department, and even more time outside of their organization. Even in our homes, parents are sometimes disconnected. And so when a leader, a teacher, a parent is not around, then they can lose touch with what's going on. They can develop a lack of understanding because they're not there on the front lines being able to communicate and discuss and learn from, like, what are the challenges that we're facing. So what do? We have to really be present. And this kind of goes back to, well, is it quality time or is it quantity time? And the Department of Labor actually reports that the amount of time that parents specifically are spending with kids has increased since the 50s. So we're actually spending more time with our kids than we ever have in the past. And so that, again, it kind of goes to, well, is it quality or is it quantity? So let me give you an idea. This is quality, and this is quantity. This doesn't count, right? We have to be with our people in this way where we are just very intentional and very present. And we've got to find productive ways to be involved. From the business perspective, Harvard has put out research showing that 70% of business leaders are uncomfortable communicating with their employees, even generally. So that's not including your performance appraisals or where your employees flying off the handle a little bit and you need to course correct them. That's just like hey, how's your day? So if we want to be better leaders, better teachers, better parents, then we've got to close that proximity between us and our people. The second is accountability. And it's too easy these days to not be accountable for what happens in our homes, on our teams, at work. And so we use labels to justify poor behavior or poor performance. We'll say, oh, they're lazy, or they don't care, or they don't want to be here, or they don't ever listen to me. Or as parents, you might say, they just, that's their attitude. That's how they were born. That's their behavior. They're difficult. They're in a phase. We'll say these things, but all that is just justification to not get involved and not attempt to influence behaviors for a better outcome. And certainly if we're leaders, if we're teachers, if we're parents, then we're accountable. We're accountable for allowing that behavior or not allowing that behavior. So one of the things that I work with leaders on is helping them to understand the difference between being responsible versus being accountable. So what does that mean? Well, that means that if Jimmy throws a rock through the window, you're not responsible for it. You are accountable for it because Jimmy is your child or your employee. And so you're accountable for what happens under your purview. You're responsible for how you react, what action you take or don't take. And so as a leader, you're responsible to take action. So you don't like the behavior, well, you're responsible for influencing it. Someone that works for you doesn't have the necessary skills, or your child doesn't know something or doesn't do something, well, you're responsible for taking action to either facilitate the learning of the skill, doing the teaching, doing the training, doing the coaching, or doing the disciplining. And so trying to flip that and understand, wow, I'm really accountable for the behaviors that go on around me, in my home, on my team, in my department, and then you can get involved in a new way. And you have to try new things because as leaders continue in their career, they have to go through this trial and error of what works and what doesn't work and what works for them. And so you've got to be bold and be willing to get out there and try new things. One thing that I teach leaders is try to be predictable. When your behavior is predictable, then that creates the predictability of your people. So if there's some quality assurance measure that needs to happen, you can go to them and say, hey, you need to be doing this right. You need to be doing this in a good way. Or you can just start to check in on it every day at the same time, and you can go over and say, hey, how's it going here with this? Or what was the outcome of this action? And if they haven't taken the action, by a couple of times you doing that, you will have taught them that their behavior needs to be that before you come over there, they do that thing. So simple, even with our kids, you go in, hey, how was it making your bed this morning? That's a simple behavior that you can incorporate. Oh, I didn't do it. Okay, well, what do you think you should do? Go make my bed. So you have to look, and maybe that's not what's going to work for you, but you have to start thinking about what is the behavior I'm trying to impact, and then what behavior do I need to display to be able to have that impact on someone else's behavior. It's not always going to work. And so maybe your behavior is going to change to be, well, we need to have a sit-down conversation. And how we have those conversations is probably another video that we're not going to do here. The last one is credibility. And oftentimes, as we get older, we think that we know what we need to know. And so we actually start not stretching ourselves. We start sinking into this level of comfort that makes it difficult for us to grow. And part of this is because of that proximity too. We're just not around, and so we're not able to keep our own skills sharp. And certainly as you become a leader, you're not doing the same day-to-day job, probably the same amount of hours that you were at one point. And as well as anybody knows, that if we have a skill and we don't use it, then we start to lose it. Think about a hobby that you used in high school that you were just awesome at, and you haven't played in a while. What would happen if you went out and tried to do that right now? You'd probably be rusty. You would say, "Oh, I'm rusty. It's been 6 months since I shot a basketball," right? And that's okay because you're not doing that thing. But it's very similar for every other skill that we have. If we're not doing it, then we're losing it, and we are getting rusty. And when we're rusty, then our ability to add value diminishes. And when our ability to add value diminishes, then that means, shocker, we don't add value as often or as potently as we could, and then that hurts our credibility. And so really, all of these things contribute to that lack of credibility. When you've been training for a marathon and you stop training, your fitness only takes 2 weeks to start declining. So what are the skills that you have been using in the past, maybe more so, that maybe are a little bit out of shape? Maybe need some more sharpening the saw. So what do? You've got to really, as a leader, a teacher, a parent, you've got to get involved. You've got to jump in and really find the opportunities to be clear and understanding of what people are doing. Learn what they're doing. And I'm not talking about the CEO coming down to the front lines, which isn't a bad idea, but probably not totally realistic. We're talking about a manager and his direct reports, a parent and their children, a teacher and their students. Come to that level to where you're understanding what their challenges are and you know the right way to guide them. So you have to sharpen your own saw. It may not be that you're doing the task, but maybe you're keeping updated on how the industry or how the science and technology is changing so that you can add that value. Certainly we want to be as valuable as we can as leaders. I know that we can do that as we have a good close proximity with those that we have stewardship over, that we hold ourselves and others accountable to high standards and high expectations, and that we maintain a certain level of credibility. Nobody wants to be that boss that when they come in the room, everyone just is like, here we go again. So don't be that guy. Do the things that you know are going to allow you to have the impact that you hope. Thanks for watching my video on how to be a better leader, teacher, or parent. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments, questions, or even ideas for a future video. Would love to incorporate those. So thanks for watching. We'll check you next time.